being a Northwest guy is you're raised in a batting cage, you're raised in an indoor facility, you're taking ground balls off of, you know how to work in limited space.
Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, and I know I'm biased because I'm a Northwest guy, but I will take a Northwest guy over somebody from another area any day of the week because I just think they're tougher. I just think they're tougher guys.
I think that's one of the best things about baseball is it still is a way that you can really develop toughness and develop, loyalty and all those kinds of things that we want out of young men in particular.
Welcome to the Pacific Northwest Fungo Banter Podcast, where we highlight all of the great coaches of the Pacific Northwest. Now, here are your hosts, Eric Sorensen, Jason Jarrett, and Kelly Gow.
Hey, Pacific Northwest Fungo Banter fans. Welcome back to another episode of your PNW Fungo Banter Podcast. Brought to you by Safeguard out of the Tri-Cities. Big thanks to them. Thank you to Max BP. Hopefully you guys have got some of that stuff to get all your season underway. It's quite cold. Hopefully you have some frost gear with you in your bag. Thank you to Top Tier Sports. Go check them out. And Top Tier, if you're still looking for summer tournaments, go check those guys out. And thank you to Deville Bats for coming back with us for another season. Fired up to have everybody back on as we are starting to wrap up our season for this. There might be some random live episodes. We'll see how this thing goes when the season gets rolling. As we are all playing games now, we're in our third week of the season as this thing drops for the spring of 2025. And man, do we have a dynamite couple episodes to end the season. We have part one with Kim Cox and Biagi as we talk about their reign through the DeSales powerhouse era of baseball. I think Coach Cox won 19 state championships as the head guy there. And it's a really fun story, and one where you could have a coach and then JC who played for Coach Cox and also coached with him. There's a lot of cool stories, and not very often do you get to hear the coach's side of things followed up with the players. So I guarantee you guys are going to enjoy it. Please share with somebody new. Try to share this thing. Go follow us on our socials on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I think we're on everything now. TikTok. I don't know. Check it out. And please go ahead and rate and review the podcast. We truly would appreciate that. So this episode's too good for me to talk anymore. Let's go ahead and bring on Coach and Biagi. All right, Fungo Banner fans, we are beyond excited. This is our last episode of the season before we all head to the Diamond. Actually, we're all already on the Diamond by the time this airs. But we're ending this thing when this season 5, I believe it is, with a bang, as we are joined by Coach Kim Cox and Biagi, wall of legends. Is that how I should introduce you guys? DeSales High School,
Coach
and so
Cox,
much
for sure.
Well, thank you for getting on the Fungo Banner podcast with us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
We are so excited. And right away, we can go. JC, you want to go first? What's your favorite fungo?
Sure. Yeah, I started off honestly with this old like heavy-handled Hoosier. And I quickly abandoned it. My college coach used this really big Hoosier. I don't even know if they make them anymore, but I quickly switched to a D-bat. Oh, yeah. Couldn't tell you the model number, but it's a super thin, lightning fast, hit missiles. And I tried to keep that thing together for 10 years and finally started to flake, so I had to get out of baseball. Yeah.
Coach Cox?
I'd have to go with the old Easton metal bat way back in the late 80s. Those things are a lot of fun. They had a lot of pop in them.
Oh man, we have one of those in our dugout in the shade.
Do you really?
Well, it was purchased as a joke because an assistant coached me for a long time. We use it now, man. We had assistant coach, and I'll shout him out, Ryan Hastings. He was a pitcher in college, and he always broke fungos for us. And I got tired of it because he broke one of mine, so I finally bought him a metal one so it wouldn't break anymore. That's why it stays there in the Hastings spot. But we bring it out because we like to hit the ground balls that we play with aluminum bats. There's something to be said about that.
Yeah.
So walk us through your path in baseball. Where you grew up playing baseball and what got you into coaching, and then your path through coaching that lead you where you are today. Who wants to start? We'll go Coach Cox.
Well, I think my interest in coaching began when I was about 17 years old. right after my junior year of high school, and I'd had an accident and almost lost my thumb, my right thumb. And so that, I mean, I couldn't play baseball that summer. And my older brother, Shane, had decided to coach like a little league age team. And so he said, well, you can't play. You might as well help me. And so I started helping him and just immediately got the coaching bug.
So when you got into coach, you coached Little League, and then what got you into coaching at DeSales High School and your path to get to DeSales?
Well, I coached after Little League. I only did that for like 1 year and just wanted to, coach some older kids. And so back then, they had Pony League and Colt League and all of those.
Mm-hmm.
And so I coached a Pony League team of 13 and 14-year-olds. So I did that for a couple summers and then coached a Colt League team. And about that time, I was getting through college and stuff, and came back and became the head coach at DeSales in 1983. And was always involved doing some sort of summer baseball too, whether it's Colt League, and then they had other names, Senior Babe Ruth or whatever, different organizations. Was always coaching around here in Walla Walla though.
Mm-hmm.
Then later on, we started running our own summer team at DeSales. And so almost every year, we went through spring, went through summer, and then I coached football too. So it was pretty busy, several months there. But really, really enjoyed the coaching, especially during the summer. Really liked that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, JC, talk us through your path through baseball.
Yeah, it went right through Coach Cox. No, truly, I would say this if I wasn't here right now with him talking about this, but I started off like probably any other kid, really young in baseball. And I happened to have a dad and a couple of uncles who were really, both big fans, but also had kind of a little bit of a history, playing. And anyway, it was, I don't know, probably when I was 11, I think I was. And I had quit Little League. I was one of those one at bat, one inning in the field Little Leaguers. I was scared of getting hit by a pitch and T-ball, kind of thing. And my dad was fishing professionally at the time, and it happened that Coach Cox was also coaching my Uncle Donnie at DeSales. This would have been around 1992, and it was probably sometime in the spring prior to a state championship run. And I was kind of in this nomad's land with baseball, and Dad brought me down to work with Coach Cox, and it kind of turned out to this kind of a trade for a fishing trip kind of thing. And so it ended up, I say my baseball career cost both Coach Cox and my dad a lot of money. My dad ended up following me all over the country playing and coaching baseball, and Coach Cox bought a bass boat. So
those are all true.
Yeah.
True story there.
No, it was good. And anyway, so the one kind of message that Coach Cox sent home with me was, and my dad, to be quite honest, because at that time I didn't know, anything, but he sent me home with a tee and said, hit off of this every day. And there wasn't a day that went by from the time I was 11 years old to the time I was 19 that I didn't. And much of that, by the way, was by order of my father. And so between these two men, they had, quite a hand in my upbringing and kind of my beliefs about baseball and beliefs about life and these sorts of things. And anyway, went through the whole cycle of playing and got done with my 5th year of college in 2005 and kind of immediately decided I wanted to get into coaching. And I came back home, I think in 2007 from Louisiana, and jumped right on the DeSales boat in 2007. And then from there left DeSales and went over to the community college. I was always kind of drawn to the college game for a number of different reasons. Part of it, I think, is you get to do it for like 8 months of the year, and that felt more right than 3. So that was, and then obviously, like, the skill levels different. The interest by players is different. There was all sorts of things that I found really attractive about coaching college kids. And then 2009, I guess it was the summer of 2009, they announced the Walla Walla Sweets were coming to town. And I got this out of the blue, no warning phone call from Jeff Cirillo, and he was one of the partners with the Sweets organization, and he invited me to interview for the job. And they were basically looking for a local guy who had time in the summer and could travel all over the Northwest and do the summer collegiate thing. And it happened at the time that Dave Melia at Walla Walla, he was kind of the first one who was offered that interview opportunity. And Dave just had a kid, and he just got the job at Walla Walla, and it just wasn't a fit. And so, yeah, I landed the job and did that for 5 years, and coached at the community college for 10 years. And yeah, and so it was all of this stuff. But really, what it comes down to is, like, coach has had kind of a hand in everything that I've done, and I credit him with everything positive that's ever happened, in my baseball life anyway. Because he introduced opportunity to me at a young age, and allowed me to hang on.
Coach, what kind of conversation is that with JC? I mean, I think about, like, our words are powerful, right? As coaches, we can be positive or we can negative. You think about the words that you spoke to JC that day changed his path. Absolutely. Got him dedicated to the game. Look, made him into the player he became, and then the coach that he has become. But what's that conversation like? I mean, I just think a lot of coaches sometimes just like, just some young buck. We'll just put a ball on a tee and go home and hit, but what kind of conversation was that?
Well, I wanted to go fishing, remember?
Okay. So you're looking at
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Really, I don't know. I don't ever think about whether conversations are positive or whether conversations are negative. I just want them to be truthful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that any time when you're working with the guy that was as young as JC at the time, I mean, his dad had kind of explained to me that he'd kind of gone through some difficulty, as a little league player, and so I just approached it as this. Playing baseball is hard, and it takes work. And the best thing you can do is get good information first, and then get to work. Mm-hmm. And he was very diligent in the work ethic part, and I knew he would be. And I also knew that John was going to make sure he did that, It's funny. You guys have heard this a million times, I'll bet you, because I have. And that is a dad saying, well, I didn't want to push him. And every time I hear that, I say, you got to be kidding me. Mm-hmm. You don't want to push him? I said, think about what you just said there. I mean, there's nothing more negative than that comment in my mind. Kids at that age, they're not able to make good decisions for themselves. They can't see down the road. No, I think you need to push them. Mm-hmm. It's okay to push them. You just have to be fair. Mm-hmm. You have to be truthful to them. They'll do fine.
It's kind of funny because as I think about that, I think about the conversation. There was nothing really significant outside of, it was more of like a mechanical conversation. Yep. And then the work ethic side was interesting too, because my dad, and it wasn't just work, it was more the discipline to work, right? Because in my baseball career as a player, like my the bright spot, if you will, wasn't in the batter's box. I ended up pitching, more, I'd say, more thoroughly in college, but it was more like, he handed me a couple of tools and said, go home and work on this, and my dad's background was such that, you know, at the time he was fishing, that took a lot of work. He was a bull rider though in college. And so this was like right down Coach's alley, you know, as far as like what he wanted in a player. And I just wasn't cutting it, you know, but my dad was very unsympathetic toward, you know, any sort of, you know, emotional hiccup I might have. And so he just kind of, I wouldn't even say instilled anything that particular day outside of, hey, here are a couple tools, go home and use them. And my dad kind of used that from there forward to, I mean, it was literally every day. Like, did you hit today? Did you hit today? Did you hit? And I'm telling you, we went through winters. We had a carport, and we set up a tarp and in this tee, and you guys probably remember these tees. They were those like, the one we had was kind of a homemade one, but it was like those 9 location tees, you know. And Coach had the makeshift like metal and rubber coming out of it, and it was like, I think there was maybe a couple times when my dad was like, you know what, it's 0 degrees out, you know, maybe hit twice as much tomorrow. And he was more worried about me breaking the bat than he was my, you know, anything for my well-being. But yeah, it was kind of right up Coach's alley as far as kind of that mentality, you know.
Yeah. He provided that really well.
You should preach it all the time with kids and at any age, right? Like good hitters hit, right? Like good hitters hit and they hit and they hit, right? And I think that there's a lot of distractions now. There's a lot of things to do. There's a lot of other stuff going on. It's not that you have to take 500,000, 2,000 hacks a day. You just got to do a little bit, right? You got to do a little bit. You got to like to do it. Building kinesthetic awareness, building awareness of how your body moves, the things you can do, the things you can't do, that adjustability that comes into it, right? Like if we just all hitting games all the time, right? Just live pitching, like you're going to fail a lot. Like it's hard enough already, right? And if you don't know what you're doing, you don't have a feel for your body, like that's the big challenge, right? And I think just having the discipline, like it doesn't mean you're going to be a big leaguer if you hit every day, right? But you're going to have feel for what you can and can't do. And you get in a game situation, you know what your strengths are, and you try to adapt and be able to be the best that you can, right? So That's awesome. I love it.
You know, it was funny, Kelly, today we had this, I come over to Coach's on Monday and Wednesdays, and he has what would we call it? It's called baseball prep. And it's kind of just like it sounds. It's like a bunch of kids come in and they work for an hour and they go home, and Coach gives them great information. They get a lot of reps and that sort of thing. And it's awesome. But I was thinking today, you know, just like you said hitters hit. And I was thinking today about that very thing. You know, like when a kid wants to become like a good baseball player, it's like you spend so much time at it and you do it with such enthusiasm. And sometimes the thing that Coach did a really good job of is he provided a lot of enthusiasm for us in various ways, you know, and it was not in any sort of like rah, you know, motivational kind of, we didn't get speeches and things like that, but it was like there was a lot of energy behind everything that we did. And there were reps that took place, you know, that weren't occurring other places, you know, high intensity stuff. It was good.
No, I think that's so good because that's, I mean, really it's how we should attack each day, right? As individuals.
No
you know,
doubt.
how do you wake up in the morning? You know, I ask, I'm a real big personal guy, right? And I like the simple questions. What inspires you? You know, what fires you up? You know, when you put your feet on the ground, what drives you? You know, and those are the kind of things that I think some people just get in the routine and they just do it to do it, or they're being, you know, I don't know, they do the comparison thing. How much of a desire do they really want to be there? You know, and just go out and have fun and do your thing, but do it with a purpose. And that's the thing is like my kind of brag about my oldest daughter here is that she's really taken the liking of basketball as well as softball in her sport. And I told her, you know, the only way you're going to get better is you have to put the effort in. You know, so I really encourage my kids to say they got to take the initiative. On my side of it, you know, a parent should push a kid, right? But the kid's got to take the initiative and want that desire and want. And so, you know, I basically give her all the tools, you know, and then she goes out and she meets with the the people that are training with her right now. She's got a gal that she wakes up 3 days a week meets at 6:45. They lift, they shoot for basketball. And then in the evening, she's doing pitching lessons at, 6 to 7, so she's doing that twice a week. So, but that's all by her wanting to get better. Right. And that's what it is. Right. And
what do you guys I was going to ask you, Jason, because I've got young kids, and this is something that I can't quite pin in my own life. Like what's that handoff like? You know what I'm saying? Like you bring the game to them, and then somehow they take it. I can't relate to that.
And each of your kids going to be a little different.
Well, yeah.
But I've learned it. Like my youngest, she's into drama and theater and all that stuff. She's sports right now. Soccer is her thing. I'm not a soccer guy. I mean, the only soccer I'll watch is World Cup, right? I mean, that's about the only soccer I enjoy. But the thing is I know that that's her driving force. So the thing is even with my son, he complains about his lack of performance. I'm like, well, how much effort do you put in at home? Not much. Well, there you go. We have a cage. We have it all set up. We got it. He's got all the tooling. He's got everything there. You have to dig that in. I can get you there, but you know what to do. You can get the tee up. You got, the machine. You can load the machine. It feeds for you. So you could do it, and that's the thing is like, I think that's where parents just go out and do it. Right. And so they're saying, well, you're going to do this, play for this team, or maybe they're doing it with their buddies. I just present it and say, this is what you should do. It's like saying, if you're a good public speaker, JC, like,
sure.
Okay, you need to be in public speaking or whatever it is. You're encouraging that individual to do more because you see the possibilities with them. So that it's a lot of conversations, and it's just being direct and assertive,
Sure.
Yeah.
I got a story about this one, and I'm so excited to tell us that. I'm in the early stages of what you guys are talking about with my kids. What are they going to be into? Are they even going to like sports in the way that I did things? Right. And it hit me there a day when we were watching a Central basketball game, and the next day they were out doing things with the basketball. And I got to thinking like, okay, where did my love for baseball come from? And Coach Cox, I don't think I ever told you this one, but I mean, two amazing guys in the baseball world that I know is Kim Cox and Merle Watkins. Right. And watching Coach in DeSales all those years at Yakima, and then playing for Merle and being a really good friend of his. And when it was 95, right? Kittitas played DeSales in the state championship game. That was my first baseball memory. And that's where like that day I was like, oh man, like this game's awesome. This is the cool. And from then on, I went to Yakima Bears games that summer, so on and so forth. And then I got thinking there, and I was like, I wonder if that's it. Is it presenting them with, and maybe that's the key to it? I don't know. I'm really curious. I'll find out in probably 12 years, at least. So I don't know. We'll see. But I'm curious to see is that what it is to make sure that, or not to make sure, but to give them, see if their interest rub off on each other. Right.
Yeah. I definitely think that like just exposing to as many things as possible and see what clicks is what works best. My dad wasn't a baseball player. Like his dad didn't push him to, be anything or not. We got Cat shout out,
Yeah, we get the Cats back.
undefeated every episode he's on. But like we went to Mariners games and we did stuff, and his dad was the grinder type that worked the 8 jobs and provided for the big family and allowed things to work out, and so didn't really have that time. And and I think for me personally, like I was the one that took the initiative to say, hey, let's go play catch. Hey, throw it higher. Hey, let's go do this. Let's go do that. Right. I wanted it. Right. Like, it's not that I wanted to, necessarily take a billion swings or do all this and that all the time, but like, I wanted to play baseball. I wanted to do those things. Like it was fun to me. Right. And then you get older, and I remember calling up the buddies, to say like, hey, let's go over to the school. Let's who can you get? Who can you get? Come over. Let's go play. Right. And maybe we're playing 3-on-3 baseball, or we're playing, maybe get a full team that day. Right. But like, we just wanted to go play. Like, we just enjoyed doing it. It wasn't because someone was force feeding us that like, you have to do this many swings, or you have to do this, you have to do that. Like, we just did it because we'd enjoyed it. Right. And no one ever forced me to do anything. And I think that's where my passion is, right? Is that, and I don't know if you guys are the same way, but I chose to do everything that I did in baseball. I was never forced to have to play baseball. And my dad will make comments now and then that he wished that I would have done the select thing earlier or done stuff like that. But, you know, I tell him I might not still be enjoying baseball if I came across the wrong people that didn't take it the right way, that were in it for the wrong reasons, right? And so, I think we can all relate to that. Is just that fact that, like, we chose to do this. Like, no one truly forced us. Like, yeah, they might have been tough on us. Like, your dads obviously get on you for things and this and that, right? But there's obvious initiative on the players' end to want to go do this, to want to get better. Otherwise, like, it's no fun for anyone if you're forcing it, right?
Yeah, and I think, Coach, you kind of talked about this a little bit before we got on air, but like the effort of practice, right? Enjoying. I know for us, for our summer program, we put a lot of practices within our summer games, and we see so much more enjoyment in our practices. Not that games are enjoying, you know, it's just showcasing to the parents and the fans what the result of practice is, but like how much enjoyment, like people don't take that enjoyment out of the practice. You know, like JC, you're talking about the tee and the tarp. I mean, that's enjoyment. Those times, you know, you're just, I can see the expression of joy. I mean, really, I mean, honestly, like those are great stories, but like, the practice effort. I mean, where's our joy in practice nowadays? You know,
if I could just kind of, I have a theory on all of this stuff too that we can get into, but the joy that I see is all in hindsight. It wasn't something that I was like super thrilled with in 10-degree weather hitting off of a tee into a tarp, right?
Just good stories, right?
Yeah, no, it is, and it grew me in a certain way, you know. But I feel like a lot of things that are really, let's call them, let's say, fun, just for lack of vocabulary on my part, in baseball are looking back. They're what was. It could have been a moment ago, by the way, right? It could be a big punch out. It's not necessarily when you're in the set position with the bases loaded and the 3-2 count, right? It's like you're not thinking, oh, this is just like Disneyland, right?
It's so fun.
You know, good for you if you are, you know, like you're at the top of the Ferris wheel at that moment, you know, so exhilarating. No, I mean, it's after the punch out, you know, it's like, we're done. You know, it's the fist pump you see on TV, you know, it's like that. Those are, I 100% agree. But so often in baseball, like you get that punch out in that 3-2 situation, right? And you give the fist pump and it's like, next thing up, what's next, you know, and the time turns so fast, and it's like the next moment, the next opportunity. You can't spend too much time soaking in that one because we got something else ahead, right? So I think a lot of things in baseball that are fun are always, you're like looking back on, you know, like what was.
What do you got on that, Coach?
Oh, I was just enjoying listening to all of that, because that's really true. I remember waking up in the morning, and me and my friends, we go down to the field and play over the line for hours, you know, just out of the infield for hours, go home for lunch, take a few hours off, and then go play some more. I mean, we played that game all the time. And that was a really good game for us to play, you know, back then.
You know, it's funny you bring that up, because just yesterday, my oldest daughter, so she's in 8th grade, she asked me, she goes, Dad, what did you guys do as kids? I mean, like, because nowadays you don't really have a lot of neighbor, like where we live, we don't have a lot of neighboring young kids. And so they don't run across there. It's all their friends, and they have to coordinate, and mom takes them to their house or they go wherever. And so I said, well, you know, we had I had buddies around that in the neighborhood, and we get together and we play the game of pickle. Really? What, you mean like the game, like baseball pickle? I'm like, yeah, we used to take a couple. My dad had a couple of 5-gallon bucket lids, and one would go on one end and one would go on the other end. And we had these mats, and man, we'd play that for 3 or 4 hours, you know, just going on. And we just, you know, the sliding and the outs, and you'd have one playing the umpire. And we would be throwing that. I remember we would go maybe 3-4 hours, and I would go into my arm. I couldn't even lift my arm. And that's just what we did. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, in the sense of like, you're wanting to get better, you're throwing, you're working on your mechanics, you're working on your footwork, but like how many kids go out to a park or they're in the front yard of their house, you see them playing pickle? I mean, you might see some of it, but that's those are, talking about.
Yeah, we used to play that all the time too. Hot boxed.
Hot box.
Yeah.
Hot box. There you go. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So,
even like at DeSales, we used to, like sometimes when you got this turnout of 20, 23, 24 guys, so you got just enough that you can kind of have a JV. So you have your 12 varsity guys, and then you got your JV team, So we used to do this thing called cutthroat, kind of like pool. So you got 3 people, so you had 3 teams playing against each other. So 3 teams of 4. And then we let it be competitive because whoever lost was going to get some PT, some personal training that was going to be not fun to do. And so the games were, I just really enjoyed them. There's a lot of swearing, because guys were just getting after each other, during the game. They didn't want to do the PT, but I really liked those days.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think our players really did too.
Did you?
Yeah. No, we had that is the thing that I guess, like for my part, Coach mentioned this. You guys were, at that coach's clinic, and he talked about his relationship with Ed Chef and kind of the inspiration that come from that program. And so life at DeSales was, I would guess, a lot different than a lot of other places, just because of the level of intensity that existed in everything that we did. And it wasn't by, people say things like, oh, we make it competitive. And I would say more like they made it really stressful. And, the competition comes out of that stress because, it's really hard to replicate the sweaty palms, the crappy breathing, the heart rate, except when you put something on the line that's so important to not have happen to you, like running, 10 poles, or as we could call, if I can say this on air, the bullshit drill. Okay. And that was something that was probably unique to our program, at least within our league, I'd say. But, Coach drew a lot of our program kind of out of the LC way of doing things. And it was just a super, super intense place. And sometimes that intensity would just be the voice of Coach Cox. It was, he's climbing down your back, over, some skill that he thought, but by now you should have attained, or something that you haven't executed today that you should have executed. And so less on the like, oh yeah, we put the score, we turned the scoreboard on, and it was more like, if the scoreboard, if you're on the low end of that scoreboard, we're gonna have problems today. And that was what we did. So yeah, it was fun. So that made it fun in hindsight. Like if you said we're gonna go do that like tomorrow morning, I'd be out. But yeah. That was good.
Coach, was that a lot?
Explain what bullshits were. I didn't even know the players invented that word, and it usually had to do with, like when you're trying to get something done, and you're like hitting some fungos or something. Maybe you're just turning double plays or whatever, and you hit like about 3 fungos to the second baseman. And we haven't been able to turn a double play because he hasn't come up with the ball yet. So about the third one of those, I'm going to be pretty furious by then. And so a lot of times it was, I just go, that's so bullshit, and start walking towards the right field line.
He took his. Let me interject. He'd take that metal fungo He'd take another fungo and he just point, and everybody just sprint over to the right field line. Go ahead, Coach.
Yeah, guys would run over to the right field line, and then you go. They start running, and you go hit it, and they had a head slide, and then get up and keep running. So you'd be going hit it, hit it, and then you gather them, and you go back the other direction. And the whole time, it'd be stuff like, "Oh, this is much more fun than doing what we're supposed to do, right?" you guys love this. I love this too. Let's do this for like 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden head back to the field, and man, it was a lot better. There's always a lot better. And if it wasn't, we go back and do some more. And so at least we were getting in good shape.
Yeah,
we weren't accomplishing much.
But it was like the third time, you come back from the line after something like that. And sometimes it wasn't like one, it was like down, it was like from the right field line to center field and back. And we're getting what's the word? Like he's
we have to do it at least 2 or 3 of them,
And then you get back and you gotta go turn a double play after that. Like you gotta with polish. It's gotta be really good. And it ultimately would get good. And you're stressed the whole time because who wants to do that? Like we came out to play baseball, not to do track. And you guys want to
pretty
do track.
Pretty soon I start hearing this term about something that we're doing at practice called bullshits, and I'm going, what are you talking about? We don't have something called bullshits.
Well, if you were in front of an administrator, we call it the BS drill.
BS drill. I had no idea they were calling them. They had a name for it.
Was that something you came up with, JC? Or is that
no? This is way before me. I mean, there were years of bullshits before I arrived.
So it carried over. It's just like everybody knew.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and you knew when you were going to the right field line. Like I was probably in 7th grade by the time I knew what bullshits were in 7th grade. And now that probably was.
I might not have, but he did.
Yeah.
Now entering from the bullpen.
Well, I hate to end that one, but don't worry. We'll be back next week with part 2 with Kim Cox and JC Biagi, talking some more DeSales High School. They're going to kick it off again with talking about how to get involved in your Little League program and make sure that how they built that dynasty, man. It's such a fun one. I know that when we recorded this a month or so ago, it was one of the coolest nights of our Fungo Banner of all 5 seasons, getting to talk to these guys. And truly thank you to Coach and thank you to JC for coming on the podcast with us. And just as we wrap up this season, I think you're going to really like part 2 because it was awesome, because I know you guys like part 1. Thank you to Safeguard. Thank you to Top Tier. Thank you to Max BP. And thank you to Devo Bats, as they are sponsors of the podcast. And then please, like I said earlier, go check out all our socials. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and go like all that stuff. And please rate and review. Until next week with part 2, good luck to everybody as your seasons are in full swing now. Hopefully everybody has a good time and stays warm and keeps coaching them up. Take care, everybody. We'll be back next week.